Half a millisecond to pure perfection. What the hell am I on about? Let's find out. Hello RageQuitters, my name is Terminator UK and this is the Asus Republic of Gamers Swift PG279Q. This is a hell of a monitor. It's been out for quite a while. It's been out since late 2015. So why are we reviewing this now? Well, we'll come on to that bit later in the review. So let's just go over some of the specifications of this monitor. So this is a 27-inch IPS panel. It comes with 144 Hz out of the box. It's overclockable via the on-screen display menus to 165 Hz. And it also supports G-SYNC, so there's a lot of ingredients here that make the monitor really, really good. But there are some special things about the monitor that I wanted to definitely cover today, which makes this, what I think, head and shoulders above panels of a similar specification. So firstly, why are we reviewing this monitor now? You must have seen 100 different reviews of the same monitor that have been out for a couple of years. Well, one of the things about 1440p resolution is quite a bump up in terms of your full HD resolution and the amount of graphics power that's designed that you need to actually drive such a panel. And it's only really since in my opinion anyway, it's only since the release of the Series 10, so like the 1080, GTX 1080 and GTX 1080 Ti recently, that I feel that this kind of panel with this high refresh rate at this resolution is used to its full potential. So this is a really, really good time, I think, to just refresh the reviews out there, because a lot of reviews came out when the panel was first released and there was a lot of quality control issues. It doesn't take much of a Google search to see that people, what they've called the panel lottery as such, like when they receive a panel of how good it is in terms of quality control. You'll see on the internet there's a lot of pictures with significant backlight bleeds, particularly in the corners, particularly towards the lower right hand corner. Now I just want to touch base on this first because I think it's an important topic. So I definitely think that this was, or still is, an issue, but I think it gets a lot of bad press and over exasperated, if that's probably the word for it. I've now had 2 panels so far, and it does have a degree of backlight bleed, and we'll show that in the video review. Actually, can we just pop the pictures on screen now? So the first picture you're looking at now is the review sample that I was given by Asus. This was showed incredible quality, as you'd probably expect from a review sample, in terms of backlight bleed. Pretty minimal in all of the corners. The thing to note about a lot of these pictures about backlight bleed is a lot of people use just their smartphones that are not calibrated at all, and the actual image that people take is normally vastly overexposed, I guess, but basically it shows the backlight bleed to be absolutely terrible, and normally you'll find that the actual backlight bleed in real life is nowhere near to that kind of level. So I found when I was taking these images, I think I used a shutter speed of 1/90th of a second, and a fairly high ISO. I think it was, was it fairly low ISO? Can't quite remember. We'll put it in the comments in the video description. But I was able to get a picture that represented quite fairly what I was seeing on screen. Okay, so you'll probably guess how we're going to rate this review at the end. I was so impressed by this monitor, so this is the too long didn't read part, that I went out and bought my own monitor because I just think it's that good that I actually wanted it for my own monitor. So the second screenshot that you should be able to see now is the screenshot of the sample that I bought. So on this particular panel there was more backlight bleed towards the lower left, but it was pretty good overall. There was some in the corners. Now, in terms of manufacturing dates, the review sample was January 2016, and the sample that I bought was June 2016. So that gives you some sort of time scale about when these different panels. So I don't know if it's pure panel lottery as such, or if ASUS have improved the quality control, but I definitely want to say that it isn't quite such the terrible situation that people manifest it to be in terms of the backlight bleed. There are decent samples out there, and even if you do get some backlight bleed, which, like every panel has its different traits, this is the trait of a high refresh IPS screen, is that we find that you do get that backlight bleed towards some of the corners, so that is to be expected. But really, in all honesty, unless you've actually received a panel which has got significant bleed towards the centre of the screen, really you've got to go looking for it. You've got to have pure black content. I'm not just talking about dark content, I'm talking about pure black content to be even able to see it. Really, in reality, and I'm pretty picky, you know me, I'm pretty picky, it's really a non-issue, so buy with confidence. I'm sure there'll be someone out there that will buy one and it'll be terrible, but yes, there is a bit of a panel lottery, but there are good ones out there. Okay, so that moved aside, let's go on to what this screen is all about. So why the heck did I say 5 milliseconds? 0.5, did I say 5 milliseconds? Well, I meant half a millisecond to pure perfection. If you go on to TFT Central, it's a very good monitor review site, you will see a breakdown of, there's a very good written review that I definitely want to point you guys in the direction of. If you have a look at that review, then you will see that it's got detailed breakdowns about the response time. Now, the first thing to note about that is that the response time is better on this panel at 144 Hz than it is at 165 Hz. Like a lot of these overclockable screens, the ability to overclock is more of kind of a marketing gimmick, if you like, and in this particular case it actually has a negative impact on the monitor itself. So I've been using it at 144 Hz and it's been absolutely brilliant. But if you have a look at the specifications, so next to me just off camera I've got the Asus Predator XB279Q. Now, TFT Central also have a really decent review of that monitor. They give the average response time on the Predator as 5.5 milliseconds, as with the Republic Gamers Swift PG279Q, they give that 5 milliseconds. So that's only half a millisecond out, and you're going to say to me that cannot make any difference. I can tell you that I've used both panels for an extensive amount of time, and certainly for me that half a millisecond makes all the difference for me in terms of response time. So for the last few years I've been an advocate of high quality TM panels, so 8-bit TM panels. Usually give you quite a good balance between fairly respectable colours and the best response time. Now, I recently also tried out the Republic Gamers Swift PG279Q, the refresh panel of the original ROG Swift. That was really good, and the colours were not too bad. There was decent gamma control on that, so yeah, I was actually quite lucky to try that. But you know, it doesn't quite have the punch in terms of colours and contrast. Gamma uniformity. After being on a TM panel for so long, it's so nice to go back to an IPS panel where the image is solid and uniform is probably the word throughout the panels. You don't get this phenomenon where you've got really washed out, really dark gamma at the top and washed out at the bottom. It's just uniform over the screen. So going back to an IPS panel is like a dream come true, so it's really good. So comparing the two, yes, on a TM panel you still got that edge, but that edge is very close to this panel very close. It stunned me, and that's why I got my wallet out and I bought one myself. It was so close that even me, being as picky as I am, said, do you know, this is good enough in terms of response time. So really, really happy to go out and purchase this screen. So let's talk a bit more about the panel specification. So the panel, and this is something I haven't looked into for a while because I've just been dealing with TN panel. You get what you get. You know, you all to do response times, throw pitch quality out the window. It's lovely to be back in the quality picture realm again. So one of the things I immediately see is the contrast ratio, which I think was measured, which is meant to be 1,000 to 1, was measured before calibration. I think it was 1,100 to 1 on TFT Central. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the whites are really white and the blacks are really black. You know, you've got very good contrast between the two. And in game, that I found that significantly helped my game. So whilst you lose out slightly on the response time, the contrast was so deep that you can acquire your targets through you know, camouflaged areas so much better. It's really easy to target your enemies, pick out their head, etc. So that was a really, really good boon of this monitor. Very, very good contrast. The other thing as well that you'll see on the TFT Central is Asus have tuned the overdrive to absolute perfection on this monitor, to the point that you just don't get any inverse ghosting on the screen at all. So everything looks solid. The G-SYNC implementation, and there shouldn't be any differences, but this seems to be the most smooth G-SYNC implementation I've ever seen on the monitor. We recently reviewed the 24-inch Dell S2417DG monitor, which is a smaller TN panel, and that felt incredibly smooth. But this puts it on another level. This is absolutely incredible. A really, really epic game experience. So yeah, I don't know what more to say. In terms of image quality, is absolutely fantastic. One last thing I'll just go on to in terms of panel variances. So the two different panels I've seen, and you'll also see in the TFT Central review, is the unlike TN panels, which you sometimes get too bright in terms of gamma and too washed out. The original sample I got from Asus was actually a little darker, matching the TFT Central's gamma measurement. I think it was 2.3. So for those of you that don't know, the gamma affects the depth of the picture, and you don't want it too bright because it's all going to be washed out, and you don't want it to be too dark because it's just going to destroy the details in dark scenes. Now I'd say the review sample is definitely, I haven't got any calibrations, I'm just purely doing this by eye. I'd say that the review sample definitely had a gamma probably closer to 2.3, so that was darker, but remember that was an older manufacturing date, so I don't know whether they've tuned it. So this the panel that I was using was 6 months later. It's significantly brighter in terms of gamma, probably much closer to 2.2. I'm hoping it's not going towards 2.1, but that's probably me just being absolutely paranoid. But I had the panels side by side, and I was playing through a variety of different games, and you don't notice it on every game, but for example, if I was playing with something like The Division, if you're indoors and you're in a very, very dark room, on the sample I bought, you could actually see details in the dark, and that was quite clear. But the review sample, you just couldn't see it. It was almost like pitch black. The colours on the review sample almost have a bit more punch like that because it is that bit darker, but you did lose those details in dark scenes. So there's probably a little bit of variance in terms of the gamma between panels, so that might be something to watch out for and have a look at with your sample when it arrives. Okay, that's an overview of what the panel's about. Let's have a look at the monitor in a bit more depth and have a look at the ports and other adjustments that are available. Welcome back to the next part of the review, and we're just going to go through the on-screen display features. This particular monitor, as well as other monitors in the similar series, has got an excellent way of navigating the menus. As you can see on screen at the moment of the image, it's basically got like a red joystick combined with a few buttons below it, and it makes a very intuitive and easy to manage system. On the right hand side, we've basically got on the side of the monitor, it shows you the menu, close, gaming settings, and the overclocking, as well as the turning the monitor off. And basically, to control the monitor, you just basically feel around next to where these symbols are at the back, and then the joystick actually clicks in, and that brings up the menu. It's very intuitive to use. You can basically just push the joystick up and down, left and right to actually navigate through the menus. Is probably one of the best on-screen display navigational features I've ever seen on a monitor. Absolutely superb to use. On the right hand side, you can see the four symbols which correspond to the right hand bezel, which you probably won't be able to see with the camera, is basically lined up with all the features that you can use. We'll go through the menus to begin with. So I'll just bring the menu back up. So first one is overclocking. By default it's off. If you go across that menu and click it on, basically you can choose your maximum refresh rates. It goes from 150 Hz right up to 165 Hz. Once this is selected, then those refresh rates will be, well, the refresh rate you've selected will be available in Windows. I'm just going to turn that back off again. Next, the next menu down is a lot of preset, what's called GameVisual modes. I'm currently in racing mode at the moment, which is generally recommended by most review sites. But you've basically got scenery mode, racing mode, cinema mode, RTS/RPG mode, FPS mode, and sRGB mode. And depending on what mode you're in, will give you more or less options. For example, if you go into the FPS mode, there is very little in terms of colour settings that you can change. As with racing mode, there are quite a few different modes that you can select. The next screen down is the blue light filter. You've got basically 0 through to 4. Obviously that filters out the light, that blue light, but it will come at a cost of image quality. Next one down is colour. So there's no hardware gamma control in the monitor, so anything gamma wise you'll have to actually adjust in software. Unfortunately, I wish that was a feature on every monitor, but it isn't a feature on this particular one. If you go across, you've got brightness, contrast, saturation is greyed out in this mode. If you actually go to, let's try and remember which mode it was now. Was it FPS mode? Let's have a look. Yes, sorry, I said earlier that FPS mode doesn't have many features. It actually does. If you go into FPS mode, you actually got the saturation menu as well, so you can actually make things look like really oversaturated. But to be honest, if you go anything other than the default, you'll find that it will quickly become very, well, as the name suggests, very oversaturated and looks really garish very quickly. The last one is colour temp. You've got normal, warm and cool preset modes, or you can go down to user mode, and then you can toggle the RGB values from 100 down to 0 manually. So that's all of that menu. If we go down, image, you've got the overdrive menu, you've got extreme, normal and off. If you have a look, as I was saying earlier, the TFT Central review, normal is absolutely perfectly balanced and gives you a decent response time, but with no ghosting or overshoot. If you go to extreme, you'll find that will have an awful lot of overshoot, and just makes it look absolutely horrible. You see this massive inverse trail around the pointer, so you don't want that. And the because the normal is so well tuned and basically doesn't have any overshoot, there's just no point of you having it off, because obviously that's going to increase the response time dramatically as a result. Lastly, well, there's two more menus. The next one down is input select. So you've got DisplayPort, and because this is a second generation G-SYNC module, you've also got a HDMI port. You obviously have to use the DisplayPort to get the benefit of the 144 Hz and higher refreshes. HDMI is limited to 60 Hz. Last one you've got is system setup. So you've got language, on-screen display position, so you can actually change where it is relative to the screen. Transparency, so if you want to look through the on-screen display. Timeout, number of seconds before it locks. Key lock, some information about current mode. Light in motion, I don't actually know what that feature does. Sound, so the monitor's got some basic speakers on board. They're not particularly amazing, but it's better than nothing. You've got a ability to reset all of the settings if you want to, and also got deep sleep modes for DisplayPort and HDMI. Now I've actually turned those off on my particular screen because not that I've heard of any particular problems, but I've had problems with other monitors, like Dell monitors, with deep sleep before, so I've turned it off as sort of like a preemptive step, just in case that comes back to bite me at any stage. So next, below our menu key, we've got the close key, so I'll just click that now. And then below that we've got the game settings. So this has, I need to just pan up a bit there. So this has got a crosshair. Oh, just bring that back up again. Got crosshair, which you can put in the centre of the screen. Just pan across. So you've got like a permanent crosshair on there. You've got timer. Just pan up to the top left there. You can see it's showing in red at the moment there. So you can time how long your gaming sessions are for and when you want to come off. Probably not, but there you go. And lastly, a FPS counter as well, which is quite a useful feature. You can see in the top right hand corner there, you've got 144 there, which is showing the frame rate. Yeah, so you can always show your frame rate in games without having to have any overlay or anything else interfering with that. Finally, you've got the overclocking button. I think again that's a bit more of a gimmick. I can't see that once you've set it that you'd ever change the overclocking settings once you set it static. Okay, we'll go on to the ergonomic adjustment as the next stage of the review. Okay, so let's have a look at the adjustments that can be made on the monitor. So the monitor is currently at its full height, but it can go right down to the bottom and right up to the top in terms of adjustments. It's got full swivel, so you can have it in portrait mode there, which is a useful and viable mode for an IPS screen because the viewing angles are so good. We'll just put it round to landscape again, and you've got full pivot up and down, which is very good. And also quite useful on this monitor is that the whole monitor can rotate on its base. We'll just grab it by its base there. You can see that you can rotate it around nearly 90 degrees from wherever the stand is facing, which is a very, very good feature. Just going to try and move the monitor out of the way slightly and see if we can zoom in on the camera slightly. So right at the bottom you should be able to see, it's a little bit dark, let's see if we can get a bit more light in this situation. That's better. So at the bottom, it looks so cool. So you've basically got this circular red ring at the bottom. That can be turned off in the on-screen display menu if you want, but it does look so awesome. It's hard to describe. It's very clear, but it's not over bright and in your face. You don't really see that when you're gaming. They've implemented that so well as the Republic of Gamers logo, which they actually got rid of on the refresh model of the PG279Q, which was interesting, but it's really nice. Again, it looks absolutely awesome, lovely deep red in person, and yeah, it really doesn't distract you. It just really looks the part. On the base of the monitor, you've also got in the lower right, you've got a little red power on LED indicator, which is great. It's not one of these in your face kind of indicators. Lastly, just seeing if you can see that just a tiny bit better here. In the base, you've basically got like a triangular shaped wedge, which acts as the cable management system. And see if we can just turn the screen around a bit. Hopefully you can see that a bit better. Yeah, you can see that the try and do it so I'm not blocking it. There we go. You can see that basically that wedge acts as like a cable management system, so you can see the route all my cables through there. So that's a fantastic way to keep everything tidy. And yeah, it's awesome. It really does help with just a general cleanliness and finish of the monitor by being able to do that. Okay, let's have a look at the ports next. Okay, we'll just go through the ports that are available on the monitor. So starting from the top left at the bottom, if we just pan down, first thing we see is one of the downward firing speakers. Not, as I say, not amazingly great quality, but it's nice to have. First port we come to is the service port. You won't actually need to use this yourself, but this would be what ASUS would use to upgrade the firmware. It is worth noting that there is actually a firmware update to this monitor. There's an issue that can occur where basically one of the sides of the screen, it basically slices it in half, and the pixels shift downwards on one side by a few pixels, and basically almost like tears the image in half. It's easy to fix by just turning it back off and then back on again, but it was a problem with some of the early samples of this monitor. I think with samples prior to I think it was July or August of 2016 should I say. So if you've got one that is prior towards that, you might want to just look out to see if you've got that issue. There is a free monitor firmware upgrade program. You can basically just contact, if you have a look on the forums, there's some contact details, but basically if you contact ASUS support, you can actually send your monitor away to get it the firmware upgraded and that issue repaired for free. But hopefully most monitors now won't be shipped with that kind of issue in situ, particularly with a new monitor. If we just scroll down a bit more, we've got the USB 3 uplink and download ports, obviously useful to have. Below that you've got the HDMI port, which you can use to connect to things like a console if you really wanted to do that. Next down you've got the all-important display port, which is what you'll need to use in conjunction with the high refresh rates and G-SYNC. If we scroll down a bit more, these are a lot of the cooling and the vents, as well as where the speakers come out. You've got a audio port there if you want to connect pass-through on the monitor itself. Now below that, this is the power connector. So I'm not a massive fan of where you have to have an external power brick, but unfortunately to keep the size and design of the monitor, ASUS had to have an external power adapter. The good news is I had a look on Google, and they're only about £10 or £11 in the UK, and they're actually available from quite a few different places like laptop repair places. Yeah, it's not the end of the world if it gets damaged, but it is obviously another thing to go wrong and that you'd have to replace if instead of just plugging in a new kettle lead if it went wrong. So that's probably one very, very small negative about the monitor. More grills and speakers, and then finally it just ends in, if we see to the end of the monitor, just that red power LED, very, very minor at the bottom. I believe you can change it to white in the menus as well, but red is pretty subdued and doesn't get in your face, so yeah, good choice. Okay, let's go on to a bit of gaming with the monitor and see how it performs. Welcome back to the game portion of the review. We're just going to have a game of Star Wars Battlefront. It's a gorgeous looking game, and I think it really shows off the panel really well. Just before the game starts quickly, I just wanted to mention the bezels around the edge of the monitor are super thin. I didn't actually mention that before. Really super slim, makes the panel look absolutely gorgeous. It's probably only about 9mm thick, and even the bar at the bottom of the monitor is particularly slim. That's not always very common with monitors. It looks really good, and I like that it has definitely got a bit of a bezel instead of just being completely super slim at the edges, which means that you okay when you're picking up and moving it around, you don't feel like you're going to put your thumb through the screen or put too many prints on it. And the other thing I want to say is, which I can't believe I've gone through an entire monitor review without mentioning, is the fact that the panel is just amazing in terms of input lag. So low, even lower than like a TM panel. Just feels absolutely amazing to play on. Just feel like so connected with the game. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, on with the show. Colours are just absolutely amazing, really pop out in this game, and the IPS panel just so well in the contrast department. Oh, whoops. Bad stuff. Right, you got one. Right. Two. Three. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Terminator's back. On a roll now. Come on. There's another one. Contrast, as I say, just really helps to acquire targets and to see them so clearly from the background. After using a TM panel for so long, it's an absolute pleasure to come back to this. The response time as well on this monitor, pixel response time, is just so good. I mean, obviously it's not quite a TN in terms of response time. There is a difference between the two, but it's so slight. you don't feel like you're in any real major disadvantage at all. A real pleasure to play on. Damn it. The droid killed him. I'll take that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Take that. Pretty good vantage point up here. Chalk up another one. Look at those lasers, absolutely amazing. The real reds are so punchy from the background. Oh, headshot, got killed myself. Gonna win. Didn't look like it at the start of this game. That was cheeky. Four frags left. That's it, we've won. Boom. 9 for 5. I'll take that. Not too bad. Not too shabby. Yeah, amazing experience. What brilliant response time, contrast, gamma, everything's there. It's just, I hate to say perfect monitor because there's always improvements, but you know, this is pretty much there. If you've been a TM panel user for many years and you wanted to step up for something that had better image quality but didn't want to sacrifice your response time, then this is pretty much the monitor you want to be looking at. Okay, let's move on to the conclusion and we'll wrap things up. Whew, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. What a review. What a monitor. Absolutely amazing. This monitor, as we've been through, has got all the ingredients for an absolutely fantastic experience. Really, really good. The panel, just amazing. such brilliant image quality. It will make you go and replay all those games again. You'll go and play all your single player games again that you didn't really want to bother because you had like a competitive TN panel and everything was to do with response time rather than image quality. This one will want to make you go back and play your real-time strategies, your turn-based strategies. Yes, there are people out there like me that like those. So absolutely fantastic all-round monitor. Great desktop experience, just general browsing, or if you wanted to use it for work, then fantastic, absolutely fantastic for that sort of use as well. Amazing response time for an IPS panel, the absolute best. I've used quite a few high response time IPS panels. This is another level beyond. If you're looking for the best IPS panel response time, this is your monitor. As we went through, amazing height and ergonomic adjustment. It just looks the part. It looks so gamerish. I absolutely love gamerish. It is a word, I just made it up. I love the red ring at the base of the monitor. The Republic of Gamers red logo in the lower right just looks absolutely brilliant. It's kind of makes it sort of look at me, but not just ridiculously over the top. I'm not a massive fan of the new Asus monitors line up with the downlighting and things. I think that's probably just a little bit too far, but this has got just enough and it just looks absolutely fantastic. So what more can we say? I mean, there's so little downsides to this. Perhaps probably the at the extreme angles where you get the phenomenon of IPS glow, where it looks white on a black background, or maybe the backlight bleeds in the corners. But that's just the trait of this panel, and as I said at the start of the review, it really isn't as bad as people make it out to be. I'm hoping, after saying that, I'm really hoping you don't get a dud panel, but remember, you've got your rights. Certainly in the UK, if your UK listeners are watching this, remember you've got your 14 days distance selling regulations. If you get a panel that you don't like, send it back, ask for a refund, get it again, either from the same place or from a different vendor. Believe me, once you get a panel that is really good, you'll absolutely love this monitor. So I've seen two panels, and both of those I'd say are both acceptable, and one of those was a B grade returns monitor from a very popular online store. So there is hope in terms of getting a good panel. What more can I say? Amazing image quality, brilliant menu adjustment, looks the part. Hell, I've gone out and bought one myself. You know this is going to be a good screen. It's got to be the legendary RageQuitters award. Thank you guys for watching. A long one again. As we always say with these reviews, we love our long detailed reviews. If you don't like this kind of thing, hit that dislike button, don't subscribe, but this is our style. If you did like this monitor and this review and this length and style of review, hit that like button, subscribe. We've got loads more videos coming up, and we're always going to be doing hardware reviews. So my name's been Terminator UK, and thanks very much for watching.